It's Arleen, and this is Healing the Hearts of Healthcare. And this week, I want to talk about why it's so important as healthcare workers that we get back into the swing of re-experiencing joy in the work that we do every single day. And again, I'm going to remind you as a healthcare worker, you have this incredible superpower. You take care of people and you heal them in your words and your deeds and your actions. And what you do is so meaningful. It has so much purpose, but it can also be an incredible challenge to find joy in the day-to-day. I totally get it. I understand. But I thought before we could start this podcast today, one of the things I want to walk you through is just a quick visualization exercise. Are you ready? I want you to imagine that you are a young child and you're doing something that you absolutely love. Like maybe it's playing outside, or maybe you're playing video games. It really doesn't matter what you're doing, but I want you to just picture yourself doing it. So for me, when I think about the things that brought me incredible joy in my childhood, it was always about being around my best friend, Dawn, and enjoying our time together, especially in the summer. Whether we were running through the sprinklers, or whether we were catching lightning bugs, or whether we were picking flowers, it didn't matter what we were doing. It was just that we were able to find ourselves in those moments and to be able to slip away and to be able to enjoy what we were doing at that time. And for so many of us in healthcare, this idea of experiencing joy in the work you do every day is an incredible challenge. Well, I don't need to tell you this. You know why. Number one, the work that we do is full of challenges. It's healthcare, which means that things change and evolve all the time. And there's not going to be a time where the day is going to be the same, regardless of how proficient your skills are and how much you work to achieve mastery. That's because we take care of human beings. And when we take care of human beings, we're involved in this interactive exchange. And it's full of challenges as well, because for so many of you, you went through that period of COVID like I did, and which I call the great sadness. You know that during that period, there was no joyful moments, or at least we didn't believe that there were. But I know for myself, when I look back in my journals, I can still see those moments where I was able to bring joy to the people that I was caring for, even if it was just for a moment or two. And that is so important when it comes to healing, because I'm going to remind you again, this is your superpower. You were put on this earth to take care of people who need to be healed and need someone to bring healing to them. And that happens to be you. That's why you're here in life school. You are learning to be the best version of you possible, the most professional, and handling yourself in confidence no matter what the situation is that arises. And I'm going to remind you why this idea of experiencing and re-experiencing joy is so incredibly important. Because if you're not careful, if you're not integrating healing into your everyday routine, you may miss the mark. You may find out that what really does happen is that you get into a state where you are just going through the motions and you aren't even realizing that those tiny little moments filled with joy are right in front of your eyes. And I'm also going to remind you, as human beings, you know this, energy passes between us And we all feel each other's energy. That means as a healthcare worker, your energy passes between you and your patients, and you and the family members, and you and visitors, and you and leaders. It's really anyone that you come in contact with. And if you are not careful, if you are not integrating into your daily practices ways to heal your heart from the experiences that you face every single day, you are going to find yourself depleted, exhausted, and questioning whether you should still stay in the field, which in my opinion is a complete shame, because when you were put on this earth and that is your purpose, you absolutely deserve to do it and do it well and do it every day, and to fulfill the work that you were put on this earth to do, which is to take care of people. And you know, I thought about this for so many years because I recognized during that great sadness, during that period of COVID, there are just so many of you as healthcare workers that are left feeling hopeless and exhausted. And frankly, you know what happens when that happens. You can become apathetic, where it doesn't matter anymore. You just can't connect your passion to purpose anymore. You can't understand or figure out why you're supposed to be doing this important work. And very quickly, you will find another pathway to follow. And I promise you, as a healthcare worker, I cannot stress this enough, that pathway that you are tempted to go down is not going to give you the same fulfillment that you experience when you use your superpower of healing and you heal the hearts of other people. And that's what I find so fascinating and beautiful about our lives. I mean, if you look into history, there must be thousands and thousands and thousands of accounts of people who have felt like they've been in a very hopeless situation where they felt this overwhelming sense of despair and felt like they didn't have it in them to push themselves forward. And I'm going to remind you, one of the biggest challenges that you're going to face here in life school is when you see that you are in that challenge, but you still have the tenacity and the grit and the spirit to push yourself forward every day. Because this is healthcare and it's not easy. And the chance of you feeling overwhelmed, well, it is very high. And you know this. You know, I think back of all the times in my career where I used to have this recurring dream. I still remember it. It mostly happened to me when my children were very little, and I was always feeling this sense of feeling overwhelmed, where I would have this recurring dream that I was just minutes away from a tsunami crashing down onto me, and I was always able to just get away. I mean, I must have had that dream in my life at least 25 times. At least. I can't say it enough. But that feeling of like trying to escape and trying to run as quick as you can away from this feeling, that really was my subconscious telling me I was feeling overwhelmed. I was feeling a bit out of control, and I needed an immediate call for self-care. And just like you, I know for me, now I feel so good because I've integrated into my daily practice and routine that self-care for my mind and my abilities to really be able to look at things from a different perspective. And for me, that is quiet, still, silent meditation twice a day, in the mornings and in the evenings, to help settle my spirit and to help me get to a place where I can look at the world in a different environment. And it is so important. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this is a little too woo-woo and a little too crazy, because meditation is not for everybody. Listen, use a different word if that isn't for you. but really allow yourself that time in quiet just to pay attention to your own body and your own breathing. And it magically sort of clears your mind out from all the clutter that fills it in the course of the day. And I'm going to remind you, when you do this, you are going to start seeing the world in a different way. And I believe that to experience like true healing, where you are not only healing yourself, but you are healing the people that you care for you to do that and to give that amazing, extraordinary care, it means that you have to learn how to find joy, even in the face of some of your most challenging hardships. And this, again, is a true lesson in life school. Because while you're here, you're meant to experience everything that's extraordinary and amazing, because you're a healthcare worker and you care for people that are total strangers that you don't know, and you get them better through your words and your deeds and your actions. So why shouldn't you get everything that you deserve? You're meant to experience those amazing things in this world, everything that you desire. And just always remember that not everybody can do this, and not everybody can do this all the time. But if you practice, and I promise, if you practice, you will absolutely get to that place where you will find that you can experience these moments of joy. And when I was thinking about this podcast, I could not help but to sort of revisit in my mind some of those experiences that happened to me during COVID. And I know for me, I've talked very openly about this. I've kept journals on this. It's really hard for me to go back and read that written word, because it takes me right back to that very dark place. But I also know in those journal entries, there are beautiful, beautiful stories of how I was able to find those moments of joy while I was delivering care. And I think about those people that I was taking care of who were so incredibly sick, and that I was not only providing care to them, but I was using those moments just to ease their fear and to actually maybe talk to them or sing to them. And these images still haunt me, because you know what it was like, right? We had our face masks and we had our face shields, and we were donning and doffing our PPE, and we were covered from head to toe, which made it incredibly difficult and scary for those people that we provided care to actually feel the spirit of healing come through to all of us. And on top of all of that, you know this, that families were restricted from being with their loved ones. And so for me, I really had to learn how to navigate to this place where I had to really look at how I was not only integrating those moments of joy, but finding that self-care and taking those moments out to reframe those experiences and the way that I saw them. And that means for all of you, that means you too have to shift the way you are looking at the things that are happening to you. And I think about Viktor Frankl's great work in Man's Search for Meaning, which was a book that I read so long ago, but really stuck with me. And in particular, definitely during this period of just how I can find and retrain my brain to look for those moments of joy. And I think about how he very beautifully in that work depicted how important it is as healthcare workers and as human beings. He pointed it out, how important it is for us to reframe out the way we see hardships. And I think about that story of when he was going through some of his most difficult times, and what he did was he imagined himself with his wife doing the things that he loved. And that is what got him through. And for me, That is a practice that I have learned to do every single day. Now, listen, I'm going to tell you, you have to also allow yourself that space, that very safe space, to recognize that there are going to be times when you are not going to have a great day. That's going to happen because number one, you're not perfect. And number two, you're dealing with human beings. Oftentimes, you can't control that. That is 100% possible, to find yourself in a series of situations that lead you feeling that your spirit is a little depleted and you're feeling very, very low. But I'm also going to remind you, it's up to you to identify when you're going through a period where you're having multiple days where those feelings still exist, because that absolutely affects the way care is delivered. See, if you're in a place where you are not well, where you are not able to look at the situation and say to yourself, I need to look at this from a different perspective. I need to really shift my energy and shift the way I'm looking at this situation. You will stay in that very deep, dark place. I mean, this just happened to me over the weekend when I had this big family reunion that I was planning. And I woke up and I told my husband, I have to shift my energy, right? I've got to put some music on and change the way I'm looking at something, because a whole bunch of things had happened to me the day before and it was weighing down on my heart. And so that is the same for you. You know, part of this journey here in Life School is for you really looking and making sure that you're self-reflecting and you're looking at what you need. Not what everybody else needs, but what you need to be able to push yourself forward and to be able to come back another day. And I'm always going to remind you that sometimes the secrets are right underneath your nose. They are right within your own environment. And that is really getting good at paying attention to what's happening around you, whether that's with your coworkers, whether that's with patients, whether that's with family members. It doesn't matter who it's with. But oftentimes we don't take those moments out where we really just focus on our environment to get that understanding of what's happening, so that we can make a shift and a change and we can do things a little bit differently. And I'm also going to remind you, always, always, always come from a place of love. We're healthcare workers. This is so critically important when we're delivering care. If your spirit is of love, if everything about you is of love, if you're embodying love and loving feelings before you're providing care, the chances is that you're going to be in a better position to give care that reaches inside of a person and touches them in a way to really produce healing. And sometimes that's really hard, because people also have bad days, the people you interact with. And sometimes it might be as simple as trusting that somebody's response is just simply because they're having a bad day. And it might not have anything to do with you. But I'm going to remind you here, when you're in Life School, the most beautiful thing we have as human beings is our ability to have free choice. We've got free will. So we have the ability to make a choice every single day. See, you get to choose if you want to be that type of person that seeks out those moments of joy or not. That's all within your power. You can do that every single day. I mean, there's nobody holding a gun to your head saying that you have to walk around the earth and only just go through the motions. No, you have a choice every day to look at it differently. Now, for me, that starts, again, like I say, every single day, starting out my morning in quiet reflection. And if you don't have time in the morning to do that, I'm going to remind you, everybody has time. You might have to wake up 10 minutes earlier or 15 minutes earlier. And in the beginning, it's really going to stink. But promise me, I promise you, once you get into this habit, it will be something that just becomes like brushing your teeth. You don't think about it every day. You just wake up and you do it. And this is going to be the same when it comes to starting your day off in that right foot. Quiet reflection, really just concentrating on your breathing and allowing yourself to just fall into this natural flow where you're allowing the worries to slip away. And if you can't do that in the mornings, then do it 5 minutes before in the car before you go into work. And I promise you, you will start to begin to notice things around you in a different perspective, because something beautiful happens when we're in that soft, still quiet. I mean, we start noticing things in our environment where we would not normally see it. And you know this, we take care of people that are sick. I mean, that's what we do. They're not coming into our workplace because we get the chance to put them through a beautiful spa treatment and they get to relax and enjoy themselves. No, they're coming in, they're not well, they're not feeling their best, and they certainly probably are worried about all the things that are happening in their lives as well. All of these worries that are coming into place that are not even on your radar. And if you are buzzing in and out and taking care of people and you are not even aware of the how you're doing that, chances are that's not going to land the way you want it to land. And you're absolutely and 100% going to miss those moments of joy. So a lot of times when I do education, I will often teach caregivers, like before you even go into a room, like take a few minutes out and just get yourself centered and picture somebody that you love or something that you loved. Like let that feeling wash over you before you even enter the room. And I know what you're thinking. I can't do that. Yes, you can. You can give yourself a few seconds to allow yourself to get into a place where you're allowing a feeling to overcome you that's going to change the way you are providing care and care delivery. Because if you haven't figured it out, part of your responsibility here in Life School is to connect with your patients on a very personal level. I mean, some people do this so beautifully and naturally. I've seen physicians do this and nurses and respiratory therapists and nurses' aides doing. I've seen everybody do this in a beautiful way. They do it by connecting to understand stories about them, who they are, what is important to them. And that is so incredibly important. Because when you can get a person talking and when you can connect to them, you have a chance to tap into them to spread joy throughout that connection. See, spreading joy when you have no connection sometimes can be a challenge. I know for me, I love to spread joy. I love to talk about those things that make me happy or they make somebody else happy, or just have a conversation and be that person that brings light into a room. But if you've ever been that type of person that brings light into a room and somebody is not prepared for that, it can be still incredibly challenging. So I'm going to remind you, another thing not to ever forget as a caregiver is, number one, we have a huge responsibility to remove the fear that exists with people by reassuring them. You know this, for many of you, when you come to work, you know everything that's going on with an individual. You know what's the treatment plan is, you know what that care is going to look like, what maybe that prognosis is going to be, what that recovery time might need to be. Like, it's innate in you and you totally understand it. But for the people that you serve, for them, this is something that is incredibly fearful. It gives them a sense of uncertainty because they have no idea what to expect. And so you have that ability to really remove that fear by preparing people and explaining things and slowing down your pace to make it very clear to them. And to do that, you've got to listen to people. And I've seen people do this really well, and I've seen people do this really poorly. That's why listening is a virtue. It's something we all have to practice, right? And to be able to listen to somebody while you're providing care, I mean, that is where you are going to pick up a lot of information to make that personal connection to learn about them. And if you've ever been around people that have done this poorly, you know how it feels. I often think about like at parties or in social situations, this is where I see it expressed probably in a really bizarre and strange way. You know, you're maybe at a party and you're hanging out with a whole bunch of people, and maybe you're meeting somebody new and it's an awkward sort of situation, and you're trying to share important information about yourself, and somebody that you're connecting with really could care less. I mean, if you've ever been in that situation, you know how that feels. You feel completely like you want to escape the room and get away from that person, because the way that person makes you feel is, you know, they're not interested in you. You know, they're not really truly listening to you. They just want to get away from you and talk to somebody else. So listening is so important. And if you're that type of person where you struggle with listening and you talk a lot more, then maybe you're going to have to build in your ability to ask more questions when you're providing care, like open-ended questions that are meant to provide a two-way dialogue. And I'm going to tell you, I think one of the secrets to providing care is our ability as human beings to really make sure we're creating a space where there's some levity there. You know, the work that we do is full of incredible, complex challenges. And sometimes just getting someone to laugh, getting someone to just feel comfortable is going to be all that they need to kind of slip into a place of comfort with you. And then you're going to start noticing those little moments that bring you joy. So it might be, you know, you creating a conversation or a joke or a connection with somebody. And that's the only funny, happy, joyful experience that person had all day long. That is the God's honest truth. That happens so much in healthcare because the stuff that people are dealing with can be so incredibly complex. And when it takes one person to change the lives and the way we care for people by creating that really safe place where true healing can occur. And I just want to believe that comes from people who just know how to bring joy and laughter and levity to some really tough situations. And I also think a way that you can experience joy as a healthcare worker is by always expressing gratitude for the people that you provide care to. And again, this is something that's not natural for everyone. So I'm going to remind you, like, expressing gratitude and being thankful to people, even if you just use those words. I am so thankful that I had you today because it made me really appreciate the care that I was able to deliver, because that time together that we had, even though it was a short amount of time, it was so meaningful. Now, I do this a lot because I'm a consultant, and I do this a lot when I'm a patient. I will often do this in the reverse way to caregivers. I will very often kind of use levity to create a connection, to really use it as a teachable moment. And I think about, at the beginning of the year, I had a procedure done, and in the pre-op, I was connecting with this nurse, and we were talking about COVID and all of our experiences. And one of the things I said to her was, have you really ever thought about how it impacted you and how it really impacted your ability to be a caregiver. And then that naturally sort of had us discussing, all the things that we came from. And we talked very openly about how we both really wanted to get to that place, like me as a nurse who happened to be a patient that day, and her being in pre-op saying like, oh, I would love to get back to those pre-COVID days. But the God's honest truth is it's not, right? We're not going to experience that. And we have to accept that. But we still can create that safe space where we make sure that every single experience that we have is one that's meaningful and purposeful and is filled with moments of joy, where we find those connections with people and we connect the work that is so important to us. Again, we're here in life school. This is our mission here. And I'm telling you, as a healthcare worker, it's your time to connect your passion to your purpose. The work you do is so impactful in another person's life. It can take on incredible meaning. And I cannot stress this enough. You can be that one person that makes the difference in the life of a patient, their families, or even a visitor, just by your interaction and how you are self-aware of what's happening around you, but then you're also remembering that superpower within, that you are this healthcare worker that was designed to take that superpower and use it in a way that was going to heal other people. And when you realize that, when you really make that connection, you are going to see how it's going to change your life, because it's going to help you maintain this sense of joy and fulfillment over the long haul, not just in a short period of time, but over a longer period of time, because you're creating new practices and you're finding new ways to do the important work you were destined to do. So you will always hear me say, if this is the journey you want, if you want to be that person that knows deep in your heart that yes, you were put on this earth to do this, and yes, you went through all that hard work and schooling for a reason, and yes, you want to still continue to do this. Number one, it's going to be that you've got to practice those daily habits and routines to heal yourself from everything you experience. Now, for me, it's daily meditation. For others, it might be mindfulness. It might just be relaxation. For some of you, it might just be jamming out and listening to your favorite tunes. For others, it might be going on a run. For somebody else, it might be picking up that guitar and strumming along. Doesn't matter what it is. The most important thing is that you recognize that it's within you, because there's only one you in this world, and you're the only person that's positioned to say what's going to work for you. And so I will always, 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 as an educator and a nurse educator, remind you of the importance of seeking out opportunities to build your skills through professional development. It's going to expand your knowledge, it's going to expand your skill set, and it is absolutely going to build your confidence and reinvigorate you. I can't stress this enough. We have so much to learn in the space of healthcare. We don't have a lifetime to learn it all. So there's plenty of time to use every experience to really embrace and learn and grow and develop those important skills. And for many of you, it will also include this realization of the power that comes behind building a very supportive peer network. And this is really hard for some people. I am not going to lie to you. I will tell you, I spend a lot of time educating people on how to build this really strong peer network. So this means building strong relationships with the people that you work with, and it also makes sure that you have a safe space where you're sharing those experiences and you are that person that's there to offer mutual encouragement and inspiration and to build people up and to make them understand that you're all in it together. And that's hard for some people because we all come from different backgrounds. We all come from different cultures, and we don't do a really great job in healthcare integrating people into our teams and taking the time out that's needed to create that safe space and to make sure everybody understands this is an expectation. So you are never going to do all this work by yourself. And trust me, if you're the type of person that believes you can, you're going to find yourself burnt out. The only way you're going to get through every single day is working on the backs and alongside of the people that you've built strong relationships with, where you have this really great sense of team and you know you can count on somebody. And for some of you, it's really going to come down to making sure that if you don't have that space that's safe for you, that maybe you need to seek out somebody that may serve as a mentor to you, that can help you, see things from a different perspective, that can guide you, that can give you insights and wisdom as to how to handle these situations and make the best of it. Because in the end, we're still human beings. And when we're faced with really stressful situations, more than likely the behaviors that come out are not the ones that every one of us want. They're the ones that send everybody fleeing. And again, if you're the person receiving care, and that is the environment where everybody is working, then quite naturally you can see how it will impact healing, not just for you, but for the people that you serve. So it's incredibly important to make that a huge priority. And I'm also going to remind you, Gallup has shown in their research when it comes to engagement that one of my favorite questions is, I have a best friend at work. I've always loved that question. And in all of my jobs, I've always made sure that, as a person that's a leader, that I show the way to people how easy it can be to really create friendships and cross the aisle and accept people for who they are. I mean, if you're that type of person that sees somebody for who they are and not who they truly are, but you're picking them out in another way, it can be very, very dangerous. You're missing the mark. Part of what we have to do here in life school is accept that we are caregivers, which means that when we interact with human beings, we look for the good in people. We look for those moments where people are doing extraordinary things, or their gifts or their talents and their skills. And that's what we hold on to. I mean, if you really look across your entire organization with all your peers, and if you're struggling with this and you're saying, like, Arleen, I'm telling you, where I work, we have a really hard time getting along, or we don't all gel, just hold on tight to the fact that you're all healthcare workers, which means you're wired to care. It's part of your DNA, and that is what you need to hold on to. And I'm going to remind you, a big part to all this is prioritizing your own self-care. You have to get to a state where you're building in those practices daily to find that self-care so that you don't experience compassion fatigue and get exhausted and leading down a road of burnout. Self-care, whatever that looks like for you, is going to benefit you. And if self-care for you happens to be right now that you're coming home and you're curling up in a bed or you're drinking a couple glasses of wine, I'm going to remind you to find other ways to do that, whether it's get yourself out, force yourself to be in nature, to be outside, to take 5 minutes to ground and center yourself. I just think that so many people in this world right now are really running away from everything that's causing them tremendous pain. I mean, they just want it to disappear, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to have that pain disappear. And one of the ways we can do that is we can take care of ourselves. That includes our mind and our heart and even our bodies. right? And I know for me, it's a constant daily struggle. I mean, just getting up and getting to the gym and going and doing it. There are days where sometimes I'm like, great, I went to the gym, but then I had an ice cream cone. Not so good, right? That's going to happen because that's life. And the most important thing is that you're moving forward in this journey. And don't forget to celebrate your successes. I mean, I feel like so many times when it comes to us as healthcare workers, we can really look at the world from a lens of like everything that goes wrong. And I'm going to remind you here in Life School, there are so many times in the way you are delivering care and the way you're interacting with people, you are killing it every single time. I mean, these are difficult, complex situations, and you're getting through it. And you're not allowing it to rob you of your joy. You're learning how to shake that feeling off and just move forward and step into the times and the experiences where you know you felt really good in the work that you did. And I'm always going to remind you, when it comes to this work, a big piece of this is you've got to look at what is important to you. What are your own personal values? And how are you making sure in your day-to-day that you're integrating those into your practices? That is so, so, so important. And so many people don't even take the time out to really think about what's important to them, what truly matters. And don't be embarrassed if something is of value and it might not be somebody else's. I mean, I have coached hundreds of people that would say to me, like, I don't understand. Sometimes people just want to get home and be with their family, and that's not for me. And I would say that's okay. That it doesn't mean that you should feel like you need to be something else. I mean, that's your journey. That's your journey. And just embrace it, but know what's important to you. And make sure you're building in the self-care, and make sure you're building in the time to self-reflect, and make sure you're taking that time out to examine yourself, and you're finding those moments where when joyful moments happen to you, you're positioning yourself to experience it because you're slowing down enough to recognize that that is what's happening right in front of you. And bring those moments to your patients. Bring those moments to your families. Bring those moments to those that visit. Because again, I'm going to remind you, they're coming in and they're full of fear. And you just don't know what other people experience. And you being that person that shifts and changes the way somebody sees a situation or embraces it, that might be the only amazing thing that person experiences every day. And I promise you, it is going to make you feel extraordinary because you're going to get into great habits of doing it over and over again. And in the process of you doing that, you're also going to be healing yourself. Listen, I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and I hope you find those moments where you re-experience joy every single day. And I look forward to you listening to a future podcast. Goodbye, everyone.